The Sikorsky SH-3 Sea King is an American twin-engined anti-submarine warfare helicopter designed and built by Sikorsky Aircraft, a landmark design. It was the world's first amphibious helicopter and one of the first ASW rotorcraft to use turboshaft engines. Introduced in 1961, it served in the United States Navy as a key ASW and utility asset for several decades before being replaced by the non-amphibious Sikorsky SH-60 Seahawk in the 1990s. The type also proved popular in civil service and with foreign military customers. As of 2015, many remain in service in nations around the world. The Sea King has been built under license by Agusta in Italy, Mitsubishi in Japan, and by Westland in the United Kingdom as the Westland Sea King. The major civil versions of the S61L and S61N. Development. Origins. During the Cold War, the Soviet Navy built up a large and varied fleet of submarines which at one point was in excess of 200 operational submarines. The U.S. Navy decided to counter this threat by using the improvement and development of various anti-submarine warfare capabilities, which would result in the development of the Sea King. During the late 1950s, the U.S. Navy was keen to take advantage of newly made progress upon turboshaft engines by commissioning a sizable navalized helicopter for their purposes. Sikorsky received a request from the U.S. Navy to design a new turbine-powered helicopter capable of performing the ASW mission. The specification provided included a dunking sonar, a mission endurance of 4 hours, and the ability to support a weapons load of 840 pounds. In 1957, Sikorsky was awarded a contract to produce an all-weather amphibious helicopter for the U.S. Navy. As per the earlier specification, this new helicopter was to excel at ASW. In particular, it would combine the roles of hunter and killer, as these duties had previously been carried out by two separate helicopters. It was also the first helicopter to be procured under the U.S. Navy's new weapon system concept, under which Sikorsky was responsible not only for the design and production of the airframe itself but all of the major onboard systems, such as the sonar, navigational equipment, electronic devices, and support equipment. As such, the navigation suite for the rotorcraft was developed jointly by Sikorsky and the U.S. Navy. Key features of the emerging ASW helicopter would include its amphibious hull, enabling the rotorcraft to readily perform water landings, and the adoption of a twin turboshaft engine arrangement that enabled a larger, heavier and better equipped aircraft than had been possible with prior helicopters. The designation HSS-2 was applied to imply a level of commonality to the earlier HSS-1. Should political sentiment turn against the development of an entirely new rotorcraft, a total of 10 prototypes were produced to support the development program. In March 1959, the first prototype conducted its maiden flight. In early 1961, a pair of prototypes were stationed on board the aircraft carrier Lake Champlain to fulfill a demand for carrier suitability trials to be conducted. These trials, which had involved testing the folding mechanism of the main rotor blades and a series of takeoffs performed during winds of up to 50 mph, were completed successfully in mid-1961. Shortly after the competition of suitability trials, the U.S. Navy formally accepted delivery of the first HSS-2 rotorcraft, which would be subsequently redesignated as the SH-3A, in September 1961. Upon entering service, it was not only the largest amphibious helicopter in the world, but also held the distinction of being the first all-weather rotorcraft to reach production status for the U.S. Navy. In late 1961 and early 1962, a modified U.S. Navy HSS-2 Sea King was used to break the 3 km, 100 km, 500 km and 1,000 km helicopter speed records. This series of flights culminated on the 5th of February 1962 with the HSS-2 setting an absolute helicopter speed record of 210.6 miles per hour. This record was broken by a modified French Sud Aviation Super Frelon helicopter on the 23rd of July 1963 with a speed of 217.7 miles per hour. Further developments. The base design of the Sea King had proved sound and several aspects were judged to be potentially useful for other operators. Thus Sikorsky elected to pursue the further development of the Sea King for other markets beyond the U.S. Navy. One of the major variants of the Sea King to be produced was a model for civil operators, which was designated as the Sikorsky SH-61L. The first operator of the SH-61L was Los Angeles Airways, who introduced the type to service on the 11th of March 1962. Another noteworthy Sea King variant, the significant change this time being the adoption of a conventional hull, the Sikorsky SH-61R, was also concurrently developed for transport and search and rescue duties, this type being extensively operated by the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Coast Guard. In U.S. Navy service, the initial SH-3A model of the Sea King would be progressively converted into the improved SH-3D and SH-3H variants. These featured more powerful engines and improved sensors that gave the type greater operational capabilities as an ASW platform. It was also common for Sea Kings to be converted for non-ASW activities. These roles included minesweeping, combat search and rescue, and as a cargo passenger utility transport. The aircrew on ASW tasks Sea Kings were routinely trained to carry out these secondary roles, as aircraft could often be quickly adapted to perform different missions in the face of operational needs. The Royal Canadian Navy became a major operator of the type. The Sea King continues to operate as Canada's dominant maritime helicopter 50 years following its introduction to service in 1963. One notable innovation in Canadian operations, which was subsequently adopted by several other nations, was the use of a winch hold-down landing method, referred to as a bear trap. This device considerably increased the ability of Sea Kings to land in difficult conditions, such as on small flight decks during poor weather conditions. In addition to aircraft manufactured by Sikorsky, several license agreements were issued to other firms to produce the type, such as Mitsubishi in Japan and Agusta in Italy. Another licensee in the United Kingdom, Westland Helicopters, would substantially modify the Sea King, producing the Westland Sea King. Unlike U.S. Navy Sea Kings, the Westland Sea King was intended for greater autonomous operation. In total, Westland produced 330 Sea Kings beyond British operators. Export customers of Westland Sea King included the Indian Naval Air Arm, the German Navy, the Royal Australian Navy, and the Royal Norwegian Air Force. In the early 21st century, following the drawdown in U.S. service, there have been a number of initiatives to refurbish ex-military Sea Kings for continued operations in addition to civil operators. Nations such as Egypt and India acquired refurbished former U.S. Sea Kings to supplement their own aging fleets, while Sikorsky had ended production of the type during the 1970s. It was reported that nearly 600 Sea Kings were in operational service in 2009. Design. The Sikorsky SH-3 Sea King is a twin-engine medium-sized amphibious rotorcraft. Many of the features on board the Sea King represented a considerable advancement over preceding helicopters. In addition to being fully amphibious and capable of operating under all weather conditions, it holds the distinction of being the first operational American helicopter to be able to simultaneously hunt and destroy submarines. Its twin turboshaft power plant layout gave the SH-3 a higher payload and greater reliability than previous anti-submarine helicopters. In the event of a single engine failing, the Sea King could continue flying on a single engine. The power plant used on the Sea King was the General Electric T58 GEHB, which was initially capable of generating up to 1,250 shp each. In normal operations, the Sea King typically would have a 4-man crew on board, these being a pilot and co-pilot in the cockpit, and 2 aircrew stationed within the main cabin area. When conducting anti-submarine missions, the rear aircrew would operate and monitor the aircraft's detection equipment and interpreted the sensor data that would be generated. For search and rescue missions, the Sea King's cabin could accommodate up to 22 survivors in a medical layout. A maximum of 9 stretchers plus 2 medical officers could be carried. In the troop transport role, up to 28 soldiers can be accommodated. The Sea King features many design elements to support naval-orientated operations. The main rotor blades and the tail section can be folded via fully automated systems for compact storage on board ships. The adoption of an amphibious hull allowed Sea King to readily conduct a water landing, and being completely watertight would enable the rotorcraft to remaining floating for prolonged periods upon the ocean's surface like a boat. Deployable airbags in the aircraft's sponsons would add to the rotorcraft's stability and buoyancy, effectively resisting the pitching and rolling motions it would be subject to while present upon the water's surface. The hull design was also compatible with landing upon a wide range of challenging terrain, including ice, snow, swampland, and tundra. Conventional wheels are installed in the sponsons for traditional land operations. The armament fitted upon a Sea King could vary considerably. For anti-submarine missions, the aircraft could carry up to 4 torpedoes or 4 depth charges. For anti-ship duties, some models were outfitted to carry 1 or 2 missiles, typically Sea Eagles or Exocets. The Sea King could also be fitted to deploy the B-57 nuclear bomb. ASW equipment used on Sea Kings has included the AUS-13A dipping sonar, specialized computers for processing sonar and sonobuoy data. Various models of sonobuoys, R-75 sonobuoy receivers, and magnetic anomaly detectors. The commonly fitted AKT-22 data link enabled the rapid dissemination of gathered sonar information to other friendly elements in range. Some later Sea King models featured digital navigation systems and overhauled cockpit instrumentation for night vision compatibility. Operational history. The Sea King became operational with the United States Navy in June 1961 as the HSS-2. When the Unified Aircraft Designation System was introduced, the aircraft's designation changed to SH-3A. It was used primarily for anti-submarine warfare, detecting and tracking Soviet submarines. In the event of an outright military conflict, they would have been used to launch attacks upon them as well. Sea Kings could also operate from offshore platforms to extend the surveillance and strike range. Nighttime ASW operations were possible, albeit posing considerable difficulty for the flight crew. The Sea King also performed various other roles and missions such as search and rescue, transport, anti-shipping and airborne early warning operations. Aircraft carriers would typically deploy Sea Kings to operate near the carrier as a plane guard, ready to rescue aircrew who crashed during takeoff or landing. They routinely transferred personnel and mail between vessels. The Sea King was exported in large numbers to Brazil, Italy, Japan and the United Kingdom. Several operators have kept the Sea Kings in use for more than 50 years. During the Vietnam War, SH-3s rescued the crews of downed aircraft at sea in overland, typically being equipped with self-sealing fuel tanks, multiple machine guns and heavy armor when performing such missions. Due to the type's greater range and the safety of having two engines, it was often used during rescue sorties into North Vietnam to retrieve downed aircrew. The Sea King was also used for medical evacuations and disaster relief efforts. The SH-3 was the primary helicopter for retrieving manned space capsules, starting with Mercury Atlas 7 in May 1962. In February 1971, an SH-3A, operating from the amphibious assault ship US New Orleans, recovered Apollo 14. A specialist search and rescue variant of the SH-3, the HH-3, also performed in this capacity. Several Sea Kings, operated by the United States Marine Corps' HMX-1 unit, are used as the official helicopters of the President of the United States. In this capacity, the callsign Marine 1 is used by the helicopter currently occupied by the President. As of 2012, a replacement helicopter fleet for the Sea King is pending under the VXX program. In 1992, the U.S. Justice Department sued Sikorsky over allegations of overcharged component pricing and deliberately misleading U.S. Navy negotiators. In 1997, the Justice Department issued further accusations against Sikorsky of willful overcharging on a contract to upgrade the Navy's Sea Kings. During the 1990s, the Sea King was replaced in the ASW and SAR roles by the U.S. Navy with the newer Sikorsky SH-60 Seahawk. However, the SH-3 continued to operate in reserve units in roles including logistical support, search and rescue, and transport. On the 27th of January 2006, the SH-3 was ceremonially retired at NAS, Norfolk, Virginia, by Helicopter Combat Support Squadron 2. They have been replaced by increasingly advanced variants of the SH-60 Seahawk. Variants. The only prototype of the H-3 Sea King. Pre-production S-61 aircraft, 7 built for the U.S. Navy, redesignated YSH-3A in 1962. SH-3A, anti-submarine warfare helicopter for the U.S. Navy, 245 built. Originally designated HSS-2, HH-3A combat search and rescue helicopter for the U.S. Navy, 12 converted from SH-3A, CH-3A military transport version for the U.S. Air Force, 3 converted from SH-3As into CH-3A configuration, they later became CH-3Bs. NH-3A, experimental high-speed compound helicopter with extensive streamlining, no floats, short wings carrying 2 turbojet engines for extra speed, 1 converted from SH-3A, later modified with a tail rotor able to rotate 90 degrees to serve as a pusher propeller. This helicopter demonstrated rotoprop pusher propeller for Sikorsky's S-66 design, RH-3A minesweeper helicopter for the U.S. Navy, 9 converted from SH-3A aircraft, VH-3A VIP transport helicopter for the U.S. Army and Marine Corps, originally designated HSS-2Z, 8 built, plus 2 SH-3A conversions rebuilt from damaged helicopters. The rest were returned to the U.S. Navy in 1975-76 and replaced by the VH-3D, CH-3B military transport helicopter for the U.S. U.S. Air Force, SH-3D anti-submarine warfare helicopter for the U.S. Navy, 73 built and 2 conversions from SH-3 as VH-3D VIP transport helicopter for the U.S. Marine Corps, 11 built. It entered service in 1976. SH-3G Carguard utility transport helicopter for the U.S. Navy, 105 conversions from SH-3A and SH-3D. SH-3H upgrade of the SH-3G as an anti-submarine warfare helicopter for the U.S. Navy. It included SH-3G features with improvements for ASW, anti-ship missile detection and other airframe improvements. 163 SH-3A DGs were upgraded to SH-3H configuration. SH-3H AEW Airborne Early Warning version for the Spanish Navy. UH-3H Carguard utility transport version for the U.S. Navy, converted from SH-3H by removing ASW systems. Company designation for the Sea King, S61A export version for the Royal Danish Air Force, wider pontoons without flotation bags, a 530-litre center tank instead of a dipping sonar and no automatic powered folding system. S61A Fornuri, military transport, search and rescue helicopter for the Royal Malaysian Air Force. It can seat up to 31 combat troops. 38 built. S61R utility helicopter for survey work and search and rescue in the Antarctic. S61B export version of the SH-3 anti-submarine warfare helicopter for the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force. Export version for the Brazilian Navy. Export version for the Argentine Navy. S61NR search and rescue version for the Argentine Air Force. S61V company designation for the VH-3A. 1 built for Indonesia. S61L and civil versions of the Sea King. S61R. The S61R served in the United States Air Force as the SH-3 Sea King and the HH-3E Jolly Green Giant, and with the United States Coast Guard and the Italian Air Force as the HH-3F Sea King, anti-submarine warfare helicopter for the Royal Canadian Navy. CH-124A. The Sea King Improvement Program added modernized avionics as well as improved safety features. CH-124B alternate version of the CH-124A without a dipping sonar but formerly with a MAD sensor and additional storage for deployable stores. In 2006, the 5 aircraft of this variant were converted to support the Standing Contingency Task Force, and were modified with additional troop seats and frequency-agile radios. Plans to add fast-rope capability, EAPS and IPS, did not come to fruition. 6 CH-124Bs were upgraded to the CH-124B2 standard in 1991-1992. The revised CH-124B2 retained the sonar buoy processing gear to passively detect submarines but was also fitted with a towed array sonar to supplement the ship's sonar. Since anti-submarine warfare is no longer a major priority within the Canadian Forces, the CH-124B2 were refitted again to become improvised troop carriers for the newly formed Standing Contingency Task Force. CH-124C1 CH-124 operated by the Helicopter Operational Test and Evaluation Facility located at CFB Shearwater, used for testing new gear, and when not testing new gear, it is deployable to any Canadian Forces ship requiring a helicopter. CH-124U unofficial designation for 4 CH-1 24s that were modified for passenger freight transport. One crashed in 1973, and the survivors were later refitted to become CH-124As. The Westland Sea King variant was manufactured under license by Westland Helicopters Limited in the United Kingdom, who developed a specially modified version for the Royal Navy. It is powered by a pair of Rolls-Royce Gnome turbines, and has British avionics and ASW equipment. This variant first flew in 1969, and entered service the next year. It is also used by the Royal Air Force in a search and rescue capacity, and has been sold to many countries around the world. Company designation for the H-3 Sea King, built under license in Italy by Gusta. Italian export model for the Royal Malaysian Air Force. Military transport, search and rescue helicopter. AS-61N1 silver license-built model of the S-61N, with a shortened cabin. AS-61 VIP transport helicopter. ASH-3 utility transport helicopter. ASH-3D anti-submarine warfare helicopter. Flown by the Italian, Brazilian, Iranian, Peruvian and Argentinian navies. ASH-3TS VIP executive transport mission helicopter. Also known as the ASH-3D-TS, the Italian Air Force operated two from 1975 until 2012. ASH-3H anti-submarine warfare helicopter. Mitsubishi S61A, license-built version of the S61A as search and rescue and utility helicopters for the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. 18-built, license-built version of the S61B as an anti-submarine warfare helicopter for the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. 55-built, HSS-2A license-built version of the S61B as an anti-submarine warfare helicopter for the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. 28-built, HSS-2B license-built version of the S61B as an anti-submarine warfare helicopter for the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. 23-built, operators. Argentina, Argentine Naval Aviation. Brazil, Brazilian Navy. Canada, Royal Canadian Air Force. Royal Canadian Navy, a former operator. Denmark, Royal Danish Air Force, a former operator. India, Indian Navy. Iran, Islamic Republic of Iran Navy. Iraq, Iraqi Air Force, a former operator. Italy, Italian Air Force, a former operator. Italian Navy. Japan, Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, a former operator. Malaysia, Royal Malaysian Air Force. Peru, Peruvian Navy. Spain, Spanish Navy. Saudi Arabia, Royal Saudi Air Force, a former operator. United States, United States Navy, a former operator. United States Marine Corps HMX-1. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, a former operator. Venezuela, Venezuelan Army. Aircraft on display. SH-3G, Buno 149,932, display aboard US Yorktown, Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, Charleston, South Carolina. SH-3H, Buno 149,695, permanent static display, NAS, Jacksonville, Florida. SH-3H, Buno 148,042, permanent static display, NS Norfolk, Chambers Field, Virginia, adjacent to gate number 4. SH-3H, Buno 149,738, Quonset Air Museum, Quonset State Airport, North Kingston, Rhode Island. UH-3H-Buno 149,711. Display aboard US Midway Museum, San Diego, California. VH-3H-Buno 150,613. National Museum of Naval Aviation, NAS, Pensacola, Florida. VH-3H-Buno 150,611. Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, Simi Valley, California. VH-3H-Buno 150,617. Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum, Yorba Linda, California. UH-3H Sea King on display at Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum, McMinnville, Oregon. Painted as Apollo 11 recovery helicopter. S61 at 61-240. Static display at Danmarks Fly Museum, Storning, Denmark. S61D4S NTBC being restored at Argentine Naval Aviation Museum, Bahia Blanca, Argentina. Specifications. Data from Omnifarious Sea King, U.S. Navy Fact File. General characteristics. Crew 4. Capacity 3 passengers. Length 54 feet 9 in. Rotor diameter 62 feet. Height 16 feet 10 in. Disk area 3019 feet squared. Empty weight 11,865 pounds. Loaded weight 18,626 pounds. Max takeoff weight 22,050 pounds. Power plant 2 times General Electric T58GE10 turboshafts 1,400 shp each. Performance maximum speed 166 miles per hour. Range 621 miles. Service ceiling 14,700 feet. Rate of climb 1,310 to 2,220 feet per minute. Armament 2 times Mk46 44th anti-submarine torpedoes. Various sonobuoys and pyrotechnic devices. B-57 nuclear depth charge.